Chapter 12. The Beacon. The void gnawed at her, but it did not own her. Zoryth wrestled herself from the abyss. Her form unraveled and wove itself in slow, carcinomatous bursts. Pain coiled in the folds of her being as nerves fired once more with the memory of the snap of Prismir that had severed her from corporeality. Era, insolent fool. Did the witchling think it would end there? That Zoryth would scatter like dust and be forgotten? Did the witchling not know that the Voskrism Zelith, the ebon crystal, would weave her anew? She would not be so easily rid of. She let her thoughts coil inward like a serpent tightening its crushing grip.
Thou dost yet play my little game, witchling.
Zoryth had watched her throughout the journey, shielding the girl's movements from Velthera's powerful farsense. A whisper here, a nudge there. Subtle. She had made certain the others would not glimpse the witchling's whereabouts. Only Alindra, curse that strange being, had felt the call of the Kris'thal close to the bay. She made her move only because Zoryth had not anticipated the witchling relinquishing the dagger onto the boy. And still, Velthera remained none the wiser. The Den Mother was powerful, yes. Too powerful. Too unquestioned. The others bowed without thought and bent their necks in devotion. And wherefore? Because Kolsheda had bequeathed the Nightshawl unto her for all eternity? Zoryth's form darkened. The edges of her being seethed with silent resentment. 'Twas she who had sensed the location of the Kris'thal atop Kolsheda's mountain in the first place, not the witchling, not the others, not even Velthera. Zoryth alone had ensured its path across Denetta had not been traced by any other mother witches. She alone had drawn Era toward it, veiled her presence in shadow, allowing the little runt to take the Krav Kilirilath right from beneath the gargantuan form of the slumbering Worm Mother. Wherefore should Velthera, having done naught all, claim dominion over such power? She ruled because she had always ruled, but that did not make it right. And now Kolsheda's Kris'thal was within reach. With it, the Citadel's threshold had been breached. With it, the seals of the old world could be shattered. With it, Zoryth would no longer kneel. A slow, knowing smile traced the edges of her form. After all, 'twas she who was the mother of the Voidkin, having birthed them from the abyssal maw herself. She had pulled them screaming from the void's hungry depths, shaped them with her own essence, and nursed them on shadow and despair. They were hers, bone of her bone, and darkness of her darkness. Not Velthera's, not Kolsheda's.
My children,
she cried.
My ghosts of the mere.
She alone should have reign over the Nightshawl, command the Night Coven, and bear the mantle Kolsheda had so carelessly bestowed upon Velthera centuries past. What claim did the Den Mother hold, save that of inheritance? What had she wrought with her own hands? What terrible creation had she drawn forth from nothingness? Naught. Nothing at all. Velthera was but a steward, a keeper of keys she had not forged, and Zoryth had grown weary of watching lesser beings clutch at power they had not earned. But the Kris'thal would change that. With its ancient magic coursing through the ebon crystal, she would unravel the very bonds that held Velthera's dominion intact. Let the Den Mother rage, let her threaten. When the seals shattered and the old world's power flooded forth, Velthera would learn what it meant to face one who had gazed into the maw and returned, not broken, but
reborn.
She stretched her will outward into the corporeal world. The void seemed to follow her. Shadows slithered toward her in shifting, diffuse shapes, their forms ragged and incomplete. Her voidkin gathered around her, but they were diminished, too weak and broken to obey. She curled her skeletal fingers, and the remaining voidkin settled like beaten hounds. their movements sluggish and pained. Good enough. They would heal, in time.
"Thy master will return to claim the citadel,"
she whispered, threading her voice through the silence.
"Lick thy tender wounds. Rest."
The citadel's gleaming towers would not protect them. Aira had carved through them well with her gambit. It was indeed impressive. For a mortal. But clever hands
could still be broken.
The cold iron railing along the grand staircase rang like a death toll as Velthera pounded her fists over and over. The sound reverberated through the black sentinel. From the window, she stared at the wound in her curse, a ragged tear where the Nightshawl had been split open like flesh beneath the thrust of a blade. Beyond the shattered veil, the ruins of Awasivras stretched as they always had, ashen, broken, long since claimed by time. But now, rising from the heart of those ruins like a star torn from the heavens and thrust into the earth, stood something that should not exist. The Kris'thal archives. Impossible. Kolsheda had destroyed them. Velthera had been told the bastion was rendered to dust beneath the Worm Mother's wrath centuries ago. She had never questioned it, and never thought of searching for the ruins of what should have been nothing but a memory. And yet there it stood, blazing like a diamond. Massive and glittering, the citadel towered over the skeletal remains of the old world, refracting light in 1,000 directions. Beams of radiance lanced upward, piercing the Nightshawl's darkness, tearing through the veil she had woven with such care. They did not stop at the curse. They drove through it, splitting the gloom and climbing toward the open sky beyond, like pillars holding up the heavens themselves. The entire city basked in its glow. Every crumbled wall, every shattered archway, every broken monument, illuminated. The ruins revolved around the archives now, caught in its orbit, like planets circling their star, bathed in its defiant, unbearable light. Velthera's fingers tightened on the railing until the metal groaned beneath her clutches. This was failure. Her failure. She was the keeper of this realm, entrusted with its eternal night, and she had never even known this threat existed beneath her watch. The Nightshawl, her dominion, her proof of worthiness, stood split open, violated, rendered impotent by a citadel of the Myr'ides she had believed long dead. Ah, the boy that Alindra had spoken of. He had done this. Somehow, that insignificant dust dabbler had wielded the Kris'thal and pierced the very heart of her dominion. But the boy was no master over the ninefold fracture. He possessed neither the knowledge, the strength, nor the will to unmake her work. Someone must have guided him. Someone shielded his path from her farsense, concealing his movements through the ruins, and led him straight to the one place where the Kris'thal could tear open the Nightshawl. Velthera's jaw clenched, fury coiling cold and tight in her chest. She did not need to search for the culprit. She already knew. She could feel her there even now, slithering through the threads of shadow, coiling at the citadel's edges like a carrion beast circling fresh prey. Zoryth, ever the deceiver. Ugh! The living shadow had been playing a long game, hadn't she? Veiling the boy's movements beneath her own darkness, guiding his steps through the ruins, ensuring no other witch could sense the Kris'thal until it was too late, all while wearing the mask of loyalty, bowing her head, speaking the covenant words. Velthera's lips pulled back in a snarl. How long has Zoryth been planning this? Cycles? Decades? The treachery would have required patience and careful maneuvering. And for what? To seize the Kris'thal archives for herself? To shatter Velthera's hold on the Nightshawl and claim dominion in her place? And what of Aira? Had Zoryth already disposed of Velthera's creation? The witchling had shown such promise, such potential. What a waste to discard a useful tool simply because it had served its purpose. Velthera released the railing and turned away from the window. She ascended the tower while her shadow clung to the walls, following her upward like an attendant afraid to fall behind. The oratory waited at the tower's height, and there, arranged in a half-circle, stood her Night Coven, all but one. Nycurus, Olindra, Myr'ides. They had felt the disruption, and they had come. Velthera stepped into the chamber, and the air itself seemed to tighten around her presence. The witches straightened, their attention snapping to her like iron drawn to a lodestone. Velthera stepped forward as her robes fluttered behind her. "Tell me," she spoke, tilting her head as her anger slid across each of them in turn, sharp and searching. Was it just her? The question hung in the air above them like a guillotine. "Her who?" Myr'ides asked, raising an eyebrow. "The traitor, Zoryth," Velthera replied. She looked at each one of the witches in turn. "Do you dare to move against me as well?" The witches all turned to look at each other. Finally, it was Nycurus who spoke. "We serve only you, Den Mother. Our allegiance has never wavered." Olindra's mouth twisted into a grimace.
"If I sought to usurp you, Den Mother, I would not be standing here like a well-trained hound, awaiting judgment. I am yours to command."
Myr'ides tapped her greatsword against the ground with a hard clink.
"No blade in your back will be mine."
Velthera let her scrutiny settle over each of them, one by one, dissecting their words and their postures. She reached out with her far sense, testing the edges of their oaths, probing for cracks in their devotion. She found no falsehoods, nor did she find any hidden knives waiting to find her back. Not in them. But Zoryth. Velthera walked past them, gazing at the ebon crystal hovering over the tabernacle. This was no accident. Zoryth had known precisely what she was doing. She had orchestrated this entire betrayal, shielding the boy, guiding him to the archives, positioning him to wield the Kris'thal, all because she wanted the power for herself. Fool. Dark energy crackled between Velthera's fingers, threading through the air like serpents hungry for prey. Zoryth would learn. The throne of shadow was not something to be stolen. "Nycurus," she called out. "Yes, Den Mother." Velthera kept her eyes fixed on the crystal. "Ensure Zoryth does not succeed in claiming the Kris'thal, and pay heed. Now that the crystal archive stands revealed, the dagger is more dangerous to us than it has ever been." Nycurus inclined her head, then melted into shadow, her form dissolving into the darkness beyond. "Olindra," she called again. The gaunt wedge shifted at the periphery, her form writhing in minute, unnatural contortions.
"Den Mother."
"Play with the boy's mind," Velthera commanded. "Lure him to the Black Sentinel. When we make our move, I want him exactly where I need him." Olindra's head jerked unnaturally to one side, her hollowed eyes flickering with what might have been delight.
"It shall be done."
Velthera turned at last, her violet gaze settling on the final witch. "Myr'ides." The armored figure stepped forward.
"Aye, Den Mother."
"The boy will try to return to his companions, to flee the Nightshawl with his newfound power." Velthera's voice sharpened, cold and absolute. "Go to the Abyssal Maw with the Voidkin. Close that route. Leave him nowhere to run." Myr'ides' lips curled into something approximating a smile.
"A strategic choice."
"I mean to take away his options," Velthera said quietly, "one by one, until the only path left leads directly to me." Velthera remained, her fingers hovering above the surface of the siphoning crystal. "This changes nothing, Zoryth. Nothing except you won't survive to see the Nightshawl's triumph. And the boy, well, He was just an inconvenience. But soon he would discover that every road in her realm led to the same destination, and when he reached the gates of the Black Sentinel, she would be waiting. Korric sat at Myr'ides' wooden table, his palm pressed against his face. The hike back from Aurora's demise had been long and bitter, but the new trade route was secure. The supplies had arrived. The people would make it through another cycle under the Nightshawl's misery, but his mind kept wandering south, toward Kai. The scent of simmering broth filled the house. Myr'id moved through the kitchen, ladling stew into 2 bowls. She looked absorbed in the task, but Korric could feel her attention on him. "You've been quiet since you've got back," she said, setting a steaming bowl before him. "What's wrong?" Korric revealed his quillbind, which held Raven's latest missive, hovering just above his palm. It read, "Kris'thal Archives. They found it. Ryn knew. Leading him deeper. Which is closing in. Danger." Myr'id read it once, then again. The firelight cast deep lines across her face. "I knew that girl was trouble." Korric sighed, rubbing his jaw. "Aye, she's not some lost runner, May. She's a right proper manipulator is what she is. She knew exactly what that bloody dagger was." Myr'id leaned back, arms crossing over her chest. "So, what's her angle?" "Void's bollocks if I know." Korric shook his head. "But she's leading him into something a lot bigger than some dusty relic. Question is whether she's actually trying to help him, or if she's walking him straight into the witch's arms like a pig to the butcher." The fire popped. An ember spiraled up the chimney. "You're thinking of heading south yourself." He felt his silence would be sufficient enough of an answer. She shook her head. "Korric, you've trained my boy. He's sharp. Reckless, but sharp. He can handle himself." The boy doesn't know combat magic." That made her hesitate. Korric leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "And he's carrying a blade so bloody powerful the witches are practically salivating over it. If I don't get down there soon, they'll gut him and take it. Simple as that." Myr'id studied him sharply enough to bore a hole through his skull. And then she sighed, rubbing her temple. "Then take someone with you. Raven's already on him. She'll keep the boy breathing till I get there. If I tread hard enough, I'll pace up to her in 2 turns. And we'll sort this mess proper." Myr'id reached across the table, her fingers brushing over his wrist briefly. "Be careful, Korric." He gave her a small, tired smirk. "Come on, May. When have I ever done anything stupid? Careful's my middle name." She didn't dignify that with a response, and he knew why. They both knew it was complete bollocks. Careful, right. He was as careful about everything except what actually mattered. Could fix a blade, scout a tread, dance around Voidkin in the dark without breaking a sweat, but the moment someone he cared about was in danger, all that caution went straight out the window. He'd throw himself in front of a bloody avalanche if it meant keeping them safe. Same as Eric. Same stupid, suicidal instinct. He'd spent cycles trying to be different than Eric. More measured, more patient, less of a reckless bastard. But he knew the truth. He was just as stupid as his brother had been. The only difference? He was still breathing. For now. Myr'id squeezed his wrist once more before rising, and that brief pressure hit harder than it should have. He didn't have time for all this softness, wanting things he couldn't have, not with what was waiting down south. But Void be damned, sometimes he wished he could just stop. Set it all down for 5 bloody minutes and breathe. "I gotta go in the churn." "Then eat," she said, quieter now. "You'll need the strength." Korric huffed a laugh and then picked up the spoon. Miles of dark road ahead, witches and gods knew what else waiting at the end of it. But for now, he had hot stew, a warm fire, and the one person who'd ever made him want to stay put. He'd take it.